Man, I see Joe. I see Joe lighting up a stogie or something along
Good
those lines.
morning,
How you doing,
Scott.
Joe? Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. We had a little technical issue, but we're not going to worry about that too much. I'm going to see if Joe can hear my music, the intro music to the Teal Shirt Report podcast. Whenever somebody brings me some coffee, Joe, I usually hear this sound. Okay, we got the coffee, a little bit of
Got the bongo drums.
yeah, that's the coffee boy on the bongo drums, and a
All
little bit
right.
of the theme music, Joe. And man, they got the NFL playoffs. Got the NFL playoffs coming at us, and I think you could hear me. I turned off the guitar player for a minute though, but it's a big game. It's a big day in the NFL, Joe.
It is championship Sunday. We'll find out who's going to the Super Bowl this year. I I like the Patriots to beat Denver today. I mean the whole backup quarterback. It's sad that Nick's got hurt. It would have been a really great matchup if Nick's was still playing, but
Yeah.
I just don't think the guy can come off the bench and lead him to a victory. I think it's going to be a low scoring, close game though. But I think the Patriots will win out and wear them down. Denver's defense, who was really good at the beginning of the year, they haven't really played all that great the last few weeks. The Jaguars, they put up like 34, 36 points on them in Denver.
That was on the road too. Yes, it was. And that was part of the long winning streak the Jags had before they lost to Buffalo in the playoff game, as you know. And, New England is a 4-point favorite, and that game. Let's see, that game is at Denver. So, I mean, that's at, what do they call the name of that field? Empower Field at Mile High, I believe.
Yeah, I just know it as it used to be the old Mile High Stadium, back in the day.
Do you remember
And
back
the fans will be cranking and stuff like that. But
yeah, it'd be loud. Man, I think the loudest stadium in the AFC is still probably Kansas City, though. That place looks like it's moving when they get to making noise. Arrowhead.
Yeah. I'll tell you what used to be the one of the loudest stadiums way back in the day was the Orange Bowl down in Miami. I spent a lot of time going to old Dolphin games back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s with Marino and 17 and Owen.
Yeah. Well, Joe, we should tell our audience that you were the personal photographer for Don Shula for a time, I believe.
Yeah, I actually go way back. Don's oldest son, David and I graduated high school together at Chaminade High School down in Hollywood, Florida.
Wow.
So I've known him, and then the people that I work for in the photography business, they were actually the team photographers for the Dolphins back when the Dolphins won their Super Bowl. It was a husband and wife team, and the husband had 2 Super Bowl rings. He had a 17-0 Super Bowl ring.
Wow.
I was very jealous of that, and they became friends with Don's first wife, Dorothy Shula, and it just went on from there. I'll take a quick second. I'll tell you one of the best things that ever happened to me in my life was we were over at Shula's house, and we were taking some photos for some kind of an ad. I don't remember what it was for, and it was Don and David and Michael, his 2 sons, and they were doing something together. So we took the photos, and then we sat down at the kitchen table. So it's the lady I work with, Sylvia Allen, myself, Dave Shula, and Coach Don Shula, and we just started talking about football. Well, really, Coach Shula started talking about football, and I just sat there in awe and listened.
It was his life. I mean, it was his life, Joe. I mean, the perfect.
I'll tell you a little tidbit. 2 things I'll tell you. The first thing is the greatest player, in his opinion, to play that he ever coached. He had a lot of good players, Marino and all the 17th Donkin and stuff. Dwight Stevenson, the center for the Dolphins. He was. He said he was the best player he ever coached. He could block two guys at the same time, and
he was the pivot man, no doubt.
Yeah, he was the pivot man. And then he also told me the one player that he always wanted to coach that he never had the opportunity was Jack Ham, the linebacker for the Steel Curtain defense in Pittsburgh.
Wow.
Yeah, I found that kind of surprising and stuff.
Jack Ham was a mean sucker, wasn't he?
Well, he wasn't as mean as Lambert was.
Well, that's true. That's true. Yeah, it's very, very true. Joe, you got that stogie lit up. What are you smoking this morning?
I'm just another black wood tip sweet black and mild, just a little something to get my day going. I got the little coffee here. I got an adult beverage. You know, I'm ready to roll. I'm getting ready for ready for the game today.
Well, you know, the thing is, back in the day, and you probably know this, you know, of course, it's still kind of the same in some respects, that the league championship games were both always on Sunday, and that's still the case now, which is good. But the start times are a little bit later now. They try to move them toward prime time, at least have one game at night and then one game late in the afternoon, and that's what they've done. I mean, I'm looking at the New England-Denver game is going to be like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and the Seattle game with the Rams is about 6:30 in the evening tonight. So the game times are obviously pushed back, and they try to make it more, at least have a primetime game on Sunday night, I believe.
Yeah, you're right about that. Listen, you know, last week they went to they went to overtime in that in the Denver Buffalo game, and that pushed back the start time. They didn't, you know, they gave a half hour extra, but it wasn't enough, and they pushed back the start time about 20 minutes on that Seattle Rams game. Not Seattle Rams game.
I didn't want you to miss any of it.
Seattle 49ers game.
Well, you know, our executive producer, JC, he's actually a staunch Buffalo Bills fan. So he was happy when the Bills beat the Jags, but man, he was a little dismayed. And, you know, he actually sent me a message back on his phone to my phone. He said McDermott is gone, as good as gone. You know, he basically, he knew that was coming. McDermott got fired.
Who's he think's going to be the coach now?
Well, he was kind of liked to get the coach from, what was the coach's name from Miami that left out of there? He liked him.
Yeah, but he turned down the interview. So I think it's going to be
been interviewed, right?
Who?
Philip Rivers has been interviewed as the head coach now.
I saw that. Yeah, I think that was for giggles and stuff. I don't know.
Well, Philip has been a high school coach, I think.
I mean, to me, it seems like the guy is Brian Dable, the guy that was the Giants coach. He used to be in Buffalo. He's from the Buffalo area. He's got a connection with Josh Allen. He seems like the natural fit there. They got to have an offensive-minded coach, and it's got to be somebody that Josh Allen gets along with. And you know, they gotta spruce up that offense a little bit. It's a one-man show.
What was the coach's name down at Miami? Was it Mike McDaniels? Is that the guy?
Yeah, Mike McDaniel. He's the he got the job as the offensive coordinator for the Chargers, and I guess he could leave that job to go take a head coaching job, but he turned down the I just read yesterday, I think he turned down an interview with Buffalo. So there must be something going on behind the scenes where he didn't think he had a shot at that job, and no sense. Listen, I'm from Syracuse, Scott, and you don't want to go to Buffalo if you don't have to.
Well, I got you. That's upstate New York. JC, our executive producer, is a big Buffalo Bills fan, but the Jags are probably his second favorite team, you know, doing this with us.
Well, yeah, that's the Jags got some warm weather. Buffalo, not so much. So
yeah. So let's talk about that. We'll get into these games a little bit. I checked the lines yesterday. New England was a 4-point favorite over Denver. That's at Denver at Empower Field at Mile High, and you know, New England's got to be the favorite based on, I guess Bo Nix being out now.
Yeah. Well, listen, before we even start on that, I do want to point out to your listeners and to you that I was on the podcast last week and I put some picks in and I actually gave you 6 out of 8 of my picks came in and were winners. So, like I said earlier, those Alabama guys, if they followed my picks, they got their money back from the Teal League. So,
from the fantasy football league we had.
yeah, from the
Well,
fantasy football league.
Yeah, I mean, everybody should know this is the famous New York Joe. Joe was the personal photographer for Don Shula for a time. How long were you the personal photographer for Don, you think?
Oh, gosh, got to be 15, 20 years.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that long. That's pretty good.
Yeah, when they
pretty good.
Yeah, we used to fly across the country to photograph the grand openings of all the Shula steakhouses up in Chicago and Washington and Tampa.
Wow.
I want to say Orlando, Atlanta, yeah, New Orleans.
You know, the last time I went to the Jacksonville airport, I guess it was, last fall when I went to see my wife. I know that there's a Don Shula restaurant here in the Jacksonville airport too.
Oh, okay. Shula Steakhouse?
Yeah, that's what I understand. That's what it looked like to me when I was passing.
Yeah,
passing
I'm sure there is. I didn't go to that one. I didn't know that. I don't think I knew that.
Yeah.
There was a Shula Steakhouse. Yeah.
So, okay. Joe, this situation, I'll give you my take on New England, Denver, and then I'll let you give your take after you hear mine real quick. I think that, you got to think in terms of probably this is the Patriots' game to lose. I mean, with Bo Nix being out. However, I really think it comes down to Drake May. If he doesn't make that, if he throws that pass interception or two at the wrong time, that may be the difference. And Denver can win the game if he throws an interception or two, I think.
I think that will keep the game close if he throws a couple of interceptions. But one of the things that I noticed and I read about, New England is getting more comfortable with their defense, and they're relying on their secondary to play a little more man-to-man, and they are blitzing. They are blitzing a lot more the last few games than they did at the beginning of the season. And as you know, Scott, when you put those backup quarterbacks in, the one thing that they have a problem dealing with is dealing with the blitz. I think New England's just going to come after Jared Stidham. I think they're going to come after him hard. They got the one. New England's got the one shutdown corner in Gonzalez, and the other guys are not playing too bad. So it's getting rough. Buffalo doesn't have a great run offense either. So
I think Denver's got to get the running backs going and a little play action. I saw Trevor Lawrence. I think it was the game against Buffalo. Trevor Lawrence kind of rolled to the left. Then all of a sudden he rolls back to the right, and he bought himself some time out of the pressure. And I think they've got to come up, and we're talking about Denver here. They got to come up, and Sean Payton's a great coach. I really like him a lot, but he's going to have to come up with a plan to get his quarterback on the move. Now, I don't know how much Stidham can move around.
He can't move around. He can't move around like Nix could.
Mm-hmm. That could be a big key and a big difference in this one. Like we said, I looked at the lines yesterday on Saturday, and New England's a 4-point favorite in Denver. Does New England cover that spread, Joe?
I think it's going to be a close game, but I think New England's going to win. I think I'm betting the under in this game. I think there's not going to be a ton of points scored. Now, one thing about that Denver defense is they do give up the big play, as you know, from when Jacksonville played Denver. They gave up a bunch of big plays. Buffalo got some big plays. And, Drake May is, I believe he led the league in the most over 20-yard pass completions. He likes to throw the ball down the field, and they bust a couple of those. And if they get up to, 20, 24 points, Denver's going to have a hard time scoring over 20 points today, I think.
Our
So,
source, there's a source we follow. There's a source can you still hear me, Joe?
oh yeah,
Oh, okay, good. Well, there's a source we follow. I don't really publicize them too much who they are, but the source we follow has Denver winning, covering the spread, and the total will go over.
yeah.
Maybe that
I
doesn't
think you got
happen.
to get. I think you got to get another source, Scott. That's what I think.
Yeah. Well, New England is still a 4-point favorite as of today. It looks like the over under is what, about 42.5. Guys, that's pretty low, isn't it? Is that a
Yeah, it
little
is. Is that? I thought it was around 45, but I
It looks
could
like
be
it's
wrong.
dropped. It looks like it's dropped. Must
Oh,
have
it
dropped a
hasn't
little
dropped a
bit.
little bit. All right, I'm gonna look at it right now. Yeah.
See what you come up with. See what you see. But I'm seeing 42.5. Our source thinks it'll go over that. I mean, and it's you would think it would. I mean, that's basically 42.5 means to go over, you'd have to be like maybe 23-21 game or something like that.
Wow, I'm on Yahoo right now, and it
Okay.
says it's dropped down to New England minus 3.5,
Wow.
and the
Okay.
over under is 43.
Okay. So most circles, we're close on these lines. You're saying New England. You're saying New England's favored by 3.5.
3.5, and the over under is 43. So it's
Okay.
dropping.
Okay. So, and then I'm looking at 42.5 on the other source. -4, New England favored, or 3.5 is what you're looking at. So, what would you do, Joe? How would you play that game if you had to play it? I'm assuming you're going to play
Well,
it.
at minus 3.5, I think I'm going to take New England and give the points. And I thought it was about 45. I was liking the under at 45, but now at 43, boy,
Hmm.
that's a rough number.
There's some other people that
Um,
have liked the under too. It sounds like.
I think I'll take the over.
Wow.
You
Okay.
know,
So it's going to be close.
I think I'll take the over because, um, you kind of go with what the market has, and you go the opposite way. The public's not
Okay.
that smart when it comes to betting. So,
Okay.
you go if everybody's betting the under, you take the over.
Okay. So you're
That's
gonna
the,
you
yeah,
definitely play. You're definitely going to play New England as a winner, right? And covering the
yeah,
spread. Okay.
yeah. I
At
can't bet
three
a
and a half
backup
or
for.
four, you're probably good
I
at three
can't.
and a half or four.
Yeah, I can't do a backup quarterback. I can't bet a backup quarterback in the
Okay.
championship game. Are you kidding
How
me?
long is how long has Stidham been around?
He's
You
been
know.
around for 4 years. He got drafted by New England.
Okay.
Um, and then I don't know how he's been in Denver for a couple of years, but he hasn't thrown a pass in the last 2 years.
Woo. So you don't know what you're going to get. You don't
You
really. I mean,
you know they say he played good during the preseason, but what does that mean?
that was a long time
Ooh,
ago too. That was months
that was
ago.
a real long time ago.
Where did
You
where
know.
did where did Stidham play college ball at?
Well, he played all over the place, but I think the last place he played was Auburn.
Okay. Okay. So our executive producer, JC, who's over in that little corner of southeast Alabama, he would know Stidham and the history with Stidham a little bit. So what do you do if you're and obviously you're taking New England to kind of win and cover, Joe, but
Yep.
what do you do if you're Sean Payton with Denver? You got to come up with some wrinkles, some plays they don't expect, and something that'll take the pressure off Stidham a bit.
Yeah, I think one of the things you want to watch, Scott, is the beginning of the game, like Denver's first possession. They're gonna do something different. They're gonna maybe do a design quarterback run, a long
Mhm.
pass downfield. They're gonna try to shake up New England and do something that they're
Yeah,
not expecting. He's not known as a running quarterback, so
yeah.
Sean Payton's gonna have him run. He's not, they're
And
going to take a
Sean,
couple of shots downfield right off the bat, loosen up the defense.
try to catch him napping, maybe something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But the thing about Sean Payton is, man, I would love to have had him in Jacksonville as the head coach. Of course, the Jags have done different things now, but But one thing I've noticed, and you've noticed it too, and you knew this would probably happen, kind of like I did. He's been in Denver like 4 years, and they've gotten ever so gradually better the whole time he's been there. Now they're like, is this like his fourth year there now? And man, he's got him. He's got him to the
I think
promised land almost.
I think it's his third year. To be honest with you, Scott.
Yeah.
I think it's his third year in Denver.
Okay. Okay. We'll check on that later. But yeah, he's been there almost 4 years. He's 3 or 4 years you and I are talking about.
I'm pretty sure they had Russell Wilson was the quarterback the first year, and then they drafted Bo Nix last year, and they made the playoffs. So I'm pretty sure it's 3 years.
Bo Nix is his guy, and then all of a sudden, he got hurt. We'll talk about this second game. And one thing about all these teams that are playing now, these are big time teams with great records. New England is 16-3, Denver's 15-3. You look over to the other side, the LA Rams are 14-5, Seattle is 15-3. And I'll give you my take on Seattle and the Rams. The Jaguars got beat by both of them early in the year. And I was really mad with the way the Jaguars played against the Rams. But when the Jaguars played Seattle, it was a much closer game. But I walked away from that game saying, man, Seattle has got a good team. They might be the best overall team in these 4 teams that are left, Joe.
Well, I think if you don't count Bo Nix's injury, that I think we did come down to the best 4 teams, on records and the way they played throughout the season and stuff. Everybody's talked about the Rams and Seattle being the 2 best teams in the NFC, no question. And then you got I think people were surprised by New England being as good as they were. I don't think people were that surprised by Denver. I think people were surprised that Jacksonville went into Denver and beat Denver, and that was a heartbreaking loss for the Jags to lose to Buffalo.
It was, yeah. And we all know that. In the Facebook group when we started talking about the playoffs, the 4 teams left, like you and I are doing now, the Patriots, Broncos, Rams, and Seattle. We talk about these last 4 teams left. Everybody's saying the NFC teams are going to win the Super Bowl. Whoever wins this Rams-Seattle game, what do you think?
Yeah. Well, I agree with that. Denver has no shot if they beat New England today against the Seattle or the Rams, and their defense is against a backup quarterback. Right. I'd like to see I'm hoping for New England against the Rams. Drake May, Matt Stafford, the 2 that are, up for the MVP award. I think that would be kind of neat.
Yeah, I'll tell you, man, Drake May, a young guy, he's got a chance to establish himself, basically he's kind of established himself as a franchise quarterback, but now he has something as a young quarterback to do even more, because not all young quarterbacks get a chance to go to the Super Bowl. And Drake May's got that opportunity. The Rams play Seattle, Joe. Seattle's a 2.5-point favorite at home. It's a 6:30 kickoff Eastern time, 5:30 Central time. With Seattle being favored by 2.5, it sounds to me, based on what you're saying, you like the Rams.
I like the Rams. I just think Sam Darnold is going to crack. I think the Rams are going to put some pressure on him. There's a long history of Sam Darnold not being able to handle the pressure. When you go back to that Monday night game, the Rams were up, I think it was like 30-14 or something like that. And, people forget that Darnold brought him back, but they had a punt return that they ran back for a touchdown. And, they had that crazy 2-point conversion where the ball dropped on the ground and the guy just picked it up. So, I just think the Rams are the team. They're, McVay's a good coach. They're going to know how to attack that Seattle defense.
That's the feeling. I've got Sam Darnold. I think used to see ghosts back when he was with the Jets, didn't he?
Yeah.
But besides that point, I think in preparation, maybe this game is one in preparation, and you go all the way to the top with Les Snead, the general manager, the coach. and the quarterback, a very veteran quarterback. And I mean, Seattle's going to have their hands full with the Rams, even with Seattle being a 2.5-point favorite and at home.
Right. I mean, the Seattle's they're going to have to rely on Walker as the only running back. Charbonnet is out, and a couple of their other reserves around, so it's going to be on Walker to carry the load. I don't know. I like the Rams. They got the two running backs there. They got the best, the best set of wide receivers in the league. They got 4 tight ends that are just throwing the ball all over the place, and they got the veteran quarterback.
Didn't you have a Seattle wide receiver in the fantasy football league that helped you a little bit?
Yeah, he brought me to the title. Yep.
Okay, so there you go. Hey, this is show number 12 in 2026 of the Teal Shirt Report podcast. And Joe, when I think about number 12, I think about Joe Willie Namath back in the day where, Joe didn't put up the stats like a lot of these guys do today. But that's back when they had bump and run coverage from the defensive backs. They allowed that back in the day.
You got to go back on YouTube and watch those old games from the early 70s, the late 60s and stuff. Yeah. That's some good football. It's kind of crazy that the offenses have just exploded. The rules changes favor the offense now, but I got to say there's been some unbelievable games this year in the NFL, and the playoffs have not disappointed at all. So I think everything's for the better,
Didn't Joe Willie Namath, in my opinion, throw one of the prettiest 50-yard passes of anybody? Yeah. Now what about number 12 for the Jaguars? Travis Hunter. He got injured. He only caught 1 touchdown pass this year. Does he play defense? Or what's he going to do next year coming back? He's got to be healthy. Number 12 for the Jaguars, Travis Hunter. They invested a lot in him.
I think they're going to keep him on the offensive side.
Oh, you do? Okay. Some people think he may go the other way, but, there's a lot invested in Travis Hunter, number 12. Now, this day and age, you wanted to get into, Joe, also talking about how the NFL is somewhat like the college football game, and like there's almost a transfer portal with the NFL, with free agency.
Yeah. Well,
Indiana,
they got some rules. The college football has got no rules. It's just crazy what's going on.
It is. I know that the Clemson coach is pretty mad. I saw something on YouTube about a player. He was losing to Ole Miss.
Yeah.
After
the guys signed the contract, they were still texting him saying, Ole Miss was texting the guy saying, we know you signed your contract with Clemson, but what's your buyout number? I mean, it's the Wild West with these guys. It's Carson Beck, the quarterback for Miami, he's played for college football for 6 years.
Yeah.
And he even said the other day after the game, he even said he graduated 2 years ago. So he's just been hanging around going to football practice, and he got $4 million last year. I don't know. It just doesn't seem right.
Well, I mean, some guys make enough money at the college level where maybe they don't even have to play the NFL. But Carson Beck I think he wanted to enhance his NFL draft status as well. And somebody will draft him. I don't know if he'll be a first-round pick or not. What do you think?
No, he won't be a first-round pick. He's, but he's got money in the bank. He's got $4 million he got this year. Who knows what he got last year? And these guys, if you're not a first-round draft choice, what's the point of coming out of college early? Yeah. Stay in college for as long as you can, and and they're getting money.
Carson Beck's got almost as much money as now, Joe.
Yeah, almost as much. Yeah.
Well, Joe, you did pretty good.
Keep that under your hat.
Yeah, I'll keep it under my hat. Joe, you've known a lot of people. You said all those people you knew back in the day have all passed away. All the old, we're not going to get into all that, but you got you knew a lot of people back in the day, Joe. You got a lot of connections.
Yeah, I had a lot of connections. I've enjoyed a pretty good run with going to Super Bowls and and doing Shula's stuff. I actually I met we took pictures at a Don Shula celebrity charity golf tournament back in, I believe it was 92 or 93. And I mean, they had a who's who of people that were there. Joe DiMaggio was there. Pete Rose, O.J. Simpson.
Mr. Coffee.
Yeah. O.J. Simpson. Yeah, Joe DiMaggio asked me. He said, "Where's the chicken at? I heard they got fried chicken out here." I said, "Yeah."
Who said that?
Let me go get you some chicken, Joe.
Oh, Joe wanted the chicken. Okay.
He wanted some fried chicken. Yeah.
And you said you saw Pete Rose. And
Pete Rose was we drove around and took pictures of all the foursomes and stuff, and it was all kinds of celebrities. Pete Rose was there. O.J. Simpson was there before everything happened out there in California.
Oh yeah, before
he wasn't all that nice of a person.
Really? Okay. Well, that's interesting. You had some contact with OJ, good old orange juice back in the day. OJ.
Yeah.
What was his first name? Marenthiel or something like that?
Yeah, I had something like that. Who knows?
Yeah, I met Pete Rose. I had a chance to interview Pete Rose back in like the early 80s. I was up in Atlanta and had a nice press pass down there when I started in radio back in the early days. Interviewed Pete Rose, Phil Necro. Mike Schmitten wouldn't do the interview. He was more interested in eating like a sausage dog down in the clubhouse. So Mike Schmidt turned me down, but Phil Necro, probably one of the nicest guys I ever met. Pete Rose was kind of serious, down to business. He said, "Yeah, let's do this thing," And but I will tell you that Joe, that's interesting about Don Shula. You knew him for a long time.
Yeah, he was a great man, boy. I got plenty of stories to tell about him, and he wasn't. I think he got forced out from the Dolphins. I think the owner Huizinga really wanted Jimmy Johnson as the coach. There was some bad blood that ended up on that relationship. When I spoke to Don afterwards and stuff a few times, I was over at his house for different situations and whatnot. He was pretty good friends with Jerry Jones, and I met Jerry Jones over at Don Shula's house for a party because of his second wife, Mary Ann, was from Texas and connected with the oil business. She knew Jerry Jones from college, and Jerry Jones didn't have a real high likability for Jimmy Johnson either. So I would have loved, you can imagine the conversations that went on between Shula and Jerry Jones regarding Jimmy Johnson. So
Jimmy Johnson replaced Tom Landry, and then he replaced Don Shula.
Yeah.
How about those apples? Joe, we talk entertainment, North Florida entertainment as well. There's a concert. We got concerts on our homepage at bigjreport.com, actually on the Neighbors 2 section. But Barry Manilow, one of your favorites, right?
Yeah, one of my all-time favorites. Yeah, sure. Barry Manilow. Yeah,
he had to cancel. They found some cancer, I think, on his lung, but it's supposed to be they're removing it, and now he canceled his January show. He was going to be at the VyStar Veterans Memorial Arena at the big arena in Jacksonville. Canceled his January 12th appearance. And he's already saying he's going to come back April 27th, I believe.
Well, he's got to be in his 80s now, doesn't he?
He's 80. He's 82. You think he's lip syncing some of those songs, Joe?
I don't think, as many facelifts as he's had, I don't see his lips moving at all.
Well, he's going to be. Speaking of music, Joe, give us your favorite go-to group, or what are your favorite?
Well, I'll tell you. I also wanted to mention that I did see the Big J report earlier this morning, and you also got Men at Work and another band coming down to the amphitheater in St. Augustine, don't you?
Yeah, Men at Work, and what was that? Toad the Wet Sprocket or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah. So you've been paying attention, Joe. We appreciate that.
I'm an old time rock and roll and an old time jazz and blues. Yeah, actually, I just the last concert that I saw a couple months ago over at the Hollywood Casino in Mississippi was the Spinners. Remember
Wow.
the
Okay.
Spinners? Now, the original members of the Spinners have all since passed away, but before the last one passed away, they gave their blessing to these guys, and the new Spinners are just as good as the old Spinners. Boy, those
Is
guys
that what they
sounded great.
call them? They call
We
them.
were,
They
yeah,
call them the new spinners.
no, they just call them the Spinners, and boy, we were jamming the Rubber Band Man and all the rest of those old
That's a
songs. They
great
sound
song.
just like they sound just like the original Spinners. They were
Wow.
awesome.
So
So,
they got the blessing from the old guys before all the old guys
yep,
passed
they got the
along.
blessing from the old guys.
Wow.
Exactly.
There's a lot of there's a
lot
lot
of
of
fun.
tribute bands out there. A lot of tribute bands out there now. If you want to hear Pink Floyd's music, they got a couple of tribute bands too, and other groups
Yeah.
are in the same boat. We have a lot of good shows out here in Jacksonville, St. Augustine, Orange Park, a lot of venues. I know that Daly's Place is. They're actually going to close Daly's Place for a couple of years until the stadium gets finished. The new Jaguar Stadium will be finished in 2028. Jags will play in Orlando in 2027, we understand. But next year in 2026, still going to get the Jags in Jacksonville, but they're going to be working on the upper. They're going to be working in the upper part of the stadium, and so they're only going to probably allow 40,000 people into the football stadium in Jacksonville.
Wow.
In 2026, 2027, they go to Orlando. I think
So they're going to play. Where are they going to play, in the Citrus Bowl?
Gosh, where is I forget the name of that stadium. I need to research that. But they've done some work on that stadium. That stadium, a lot of people had described that stadium as kind of a dump, but I think they've done the work, or they're still doing the work to get ready for the Jaguars coming in 2027 for 1 year, and then the Jacksonville Jaguars come back to Jacksonville in 2028. So it's only going to be 1 year in Orlando.
I'm surprised they didn't go down to Gator Stadium in Gainesville. That was closer. Why did they end up going to Orlando?
Yeah, that's what I wanted. Orlando's 2.5 hours away. It's more central Florida. I would have probably preferred even Tallahassee or Gainesville if South Georgia had a big enough stadium somewhere, but they really don't. So it looks like Orlando, they put in for it. They wanted the Jags for 1 year, and that's what they've got. And they've got a UFL team down there too now, I understand, down in Orlando. I'm not big on the UFL. I used to like the XFL a good bit, but I'm not really as big on the UFL. But I'll tell you, Joe, it sounds to me like you're thinking the Rams and the Patriots are going to be in the Super Bowl.
That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking Rams and Patriots.
As far as my prediction goes, I kind of like Les Snead, their coach, and their veteran quarterback. I think the Rams maybe by a whisker in this one. Could Seattle lay an egg and the Rams wipe them out on their own field?
Could be, and to tie everything together, Scott, Don Shula's grandson, David's son, Chris Shula, is the defensive coordinator for the Rams.
Wow.
I'm sure you knew that. Yeah.
The coffee boy probably knows that, though. He knows a lot of stuff, our executive producer that brings me the coffee on the show. But, man, that's some interesting stuff, some good tidbits, Joe. Do you remember the year Don Shula passed away? It's been, 2 or 3 years now?
It's been about 5 years, I think, 5 or 6 years.
Man, he took the perfect season to heaven with him, to the grave, actually. So,
yeah.
Interesting. Let me ask you about this before we let you go here. Back to college football. Indiana won the title. Indiana Hoosiers 27. Your Miami of Florida Hurricanes 21. But if you played the Miami Hurricanes, you won by the spread, right? How many points did you get in that one?
8.5.
Okay, you got the 8.5. It had dropped to 8, but Indiana won by 6, so you would still be a winner there by the spread.
Yep.
Let me ask you this, Joe. Was Indiana's season the best ever in college football? The 16-0?
Not in my opinion.
Okay.
I'll
Okay.
take the 2001 Miami Hurricanes.
Okay. They were undefeated. They didn't lose that year.
No, and I think it was the year they had 6 first-round draft choices.
Okay. And they were, I'm going to guess they were probably 12-0, 13-0 at the
Mhm.
most.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay.
So,
I got you. But
you know,
16-0
but
is
I'm
pretty
partial.
impressive.
I'm,
I mean,
yeah.
well, you're partial. That's true. There's some people that think, Paul Feinbaum, aka Barney Fife, he's talked about how he was wrong about Indiana. I guess he didn't think they were going to go all the way, but they did. And Indiana beat a lot of good teams, including they won the first Big Ten title in decades. They haven't won a Big Ten title since like the mid or late 60s.
Yeah, that's true. I don't believe they beat all that many good teams. They beat Ohio State.
They did.
Alabama was flawed. They had no running game. Oregon, they just handed that game away. The first play of the game, the guy threw a pick six, and Miami played them tough. I mean, they were in the game till 50 seconds left when he threw that interception. That game was up for grabs. So, and the one thing, Indiana's got some 23, 24, 25-year-old men playing in there. They got some
They had some Carson Becks on their team.
Boy.
Hey, they had some Carson Becks on their team, didn't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
where you see the guy from Miami's got, they had some freshmen. That guy Tony, he's 18 years old.
Man, so Indiana's got some older players. What do you think about Signetti, the head coach? He did a heck of a job there.
Yeah, he did do a great job. He knows what he's doing now with the transfer portal and whatever. So he's got him lined up, and it'll be good to see. Hey, listen, I'm just glad that there's somebody else putting something up in the Big Ten, and it's not Michigan and Ohio State year after year after year. It's good to see Indiana doing good.
So when Indiana beat Alabama 38-3, for the Bama boys out there, that was a blowout. And I listened to a guy named Buddy Martin in Florida's podcast, and he had Shane Matthews on his show, and Shane Matthews, a former Gator quarterback, said he watched the game, kind of halfway quoting what he said, paraphrasing it. He basically said Indiana not only was faster, but they were a lot more physical than Alabama too.
Well, that's where when you got 24-year-old guys up against 21-year-old guys, that makes a difference and stuff. So in the course of the whole game. So Indiana knew what they were doing. They took 3-star recruits that were in their 5th year or 6th year, and they went up against Alabama's 4- and 5-star recruits that were in their 1st and 2nd year, and that was the difference.
I think Signetti might have learned some things like that with James Madison, because a lot of those mid-major schools that actually are pretty good, they have older players, don't they?
Yeah, they had a bunch of the players from James Madison followed him to Indiana.
Wow. And now, Coach Billy Napier's gone to James Madison now.
Oh, okay. That's kind of the trend now. You got the guy from Iowa State, Campbell, who went to Penn State, and he had like 35 of his players followed him to Penn State. And that's happening with a lot of these coaches, although I believe Summerall, who's the new Gators coach, he only brought just the kicker and the punter from Tulane with him.
Well, that was my next question. I was going to ask you, because I know you and I have talked a little bit, off the air, if you will, but we message back and forth like I do with John Gaylor, our correspondent and contributor, and of course our executive producer JC and another producer Alex Nunnery. These guys are all very helpful to me, as you are, Joe. But you told me a while back, like several weeks ago, back when the Gators first hired Summerall, you thought it was a pretty good hire.
He's a quality human being. I listened this year, because I live in the New Orleans area. I listened to the sports talk station, and they used to have his show. He have his show on there, and he's just a real quality guy. So
That's great.
I like them.
Great.
I've never been, and you know me, I've never been a big Gator fan, but I am definitely a fan of Summerall. So I'll be rooting for the Gators this year.
Well, that's good. It's about time, Joe. You
unless they play, unless they play Miami.
Yeah. I think that series might be thinning out some. I'm not sure. But, I'm going to tell you another thing about college football. What's going to be even tougher in the SEC now is you go from 8 conference games to 9 conference games now. So the schedule is going to be as tough, if not tougher.
Yeah, but there'll be less out of conference quality games. They're not going to be. They probably won't. The Gators aren't going to be playing Miami anymore because they're going to be playing Florida State, and to put Miami on the schedule with Florida State with 9 SEC. That's 11 rough. Even if you're playing a bottom dweller in the SEC, that's still a quality team.
Well, when we had the East and the West and the SEC, and now it's just one big conference like the old days,
right?
When there was a 10-team SEC. But Joe, Vanderbilt was not on Florida's schedule this past year, but they come back on the schedule next year, and Vanderbilt all of a sudden is pretty good.
Yeah,
they must have some, their alumni gathering up some money. Vanderbilt and Georgia Tech both started winning.
Yep. That's the key, the money. That's the thing. You got to have, oil money or big tech money and stuff. And that's the problem with the SEC. They can't really match up with some of these Big Ten schools and USC out in the West, and the teams, they do have the teams in Texas are getting all the money, but the rest of them, they're struggling.
Yeah.
And, Georgia lost their biggest donor was the car guy, and evidently they lost him this year. So that's going to be a problem for the Bulldogs.
Yeah. All their money used to come through Southwest Georgia. Just ask Rush Probst. He knew about that.
Yeah.
The old high school football coach. But so Joe, in regard to college football now, Cignetti signed a big contract with Indiana. I think they gave him a new contract. Was it about halfway through this year?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. And then I there was a couple of Alabama fans. I don't know how true it is, but all of a sudden they're saying maybe Alabama might go after Cignetti at some point.
I don't see that. I don't see that happening, Scott.
Okay.
He's 64 years old. I think he's entrenched himself in Indiana, and he'll build his legacy there.
Yeah, he's won a title there. He's won.
Right.
Even if they didn't win the national title, winning the Big Ten, everything was gravy after that.
Yeah, I don't think
I
don't think he's interested in going to the NFL, and that would be, I think, the only place he would go. I don't think he's gonna. I don't think he's going to leave to go to the SEC. They're paying him big money. He's getting big money in Indiana. Big money. They got Mark Cuban is their big donor now. And, I think he wrote like a $30 million check this year or something like that. So they got some money in their coffers to pay these NIL deals for these players. So I look for Indiana to be right up there. I think, aren't they like the preseason for next year? Aren't they ranked number 1 for the preseason or number 2?
I haven't seen the 2020.
I see Oregon is up there in the top 3 again, and they got Nike Phil Knight money. So it's who's got the most money.
I don't know how good Florida will be, but it looks like the new coach is putting together a pretty good offensive line. They got 2 good running backs. I think they're going to be able to move the ball. And besides that, Summerall's a defensive coach. Florida should get better. I don't know how quickly, but hopefully, hopefully in his first or second year, they get a shot at the playoff.
Right.
So let me ask you one quick question. I'll let you go, Joe. This Indiana 16-0 season, that's going to be hard for teams in the next few years to duplicate, I would think. 16-0. It's kind of like the Dolphins 17-0 perfect season almost.
Yeah, when they expand to 16 teams in the playoffs. That'll add another game. So, I mean, it's hard to go 16-0. I give them credit for that, but I think somebody could beat that coming up. We'll see. College football's changing by the minute, Scott. It's changing by the minute.
It's a wild, wild west. I did read something this morning, which is probably a bit of good news maybe for now, but it looks like they've decided that they're going to keep the 12-team playoff at least for next year. But
they are.
Know, the TV people, they're good. They want 16 teams. They want 24 teams. It's all about the networks that basically the 4-letter network owns college football. They want more.
They had the I read that, and that was the SEC and the Big Ten. The SEC wanted 16 teams, and the Big Ten, for some reason, wants 24 teams, which that just seems a little too much, if you ask me. And they couldn't come to an agreement, and because they couldn't come to an agreement, we're stuck with 12 teams again next year.
Yeah, I think that's happened before in the past, even before this 12-team playoff. They said, well, we're going to keep it at 4 now. I remember we went through a period of time a few years ago about they kept it at 4, and then they kept it at 4 again, but now it's 12 at least for this year and next year.
Yeah.
And, now what about the teams? And I'll just about let you go now, Joe. But the teams that did not make the playoff this year, when you think about it, the teams that come to mind to me were teams like Brigham Young, Notre Dame, obviously, and even Vanderbilt, because I think they had an identical record as Oklahoma, and Oklahoma got in, Vanderbilt did not.
Texas is another one.
Texas got strong at the end because with Arch Manning, and they ended up beating Texas A&M, I believe, the last regular season game.
They did. They beat Oklahoma. They played a bunch of teams that were in the playoffs. So they really need to go to the 16 teams. That way the smaller schools like James Madison and Tulane will still get their couple of berths in there, and then they'll have the best, let's say 14.
You're starting to sound like our executive producer JC now. I think he's saying there's going to be more teams in. It's debatable on who's going to get in, but the mid majors, it's going to depend on these mid majors. They got to have a really good record to get in, like no losses or one loss, probably to get in, right?
Yeah, they got to be ranked. They got to be ranked ahead. It's the 5 highest ranked conference champions. And the only reason Miami got in this year is because Duke beat Virginia in that ACC championship game. Otherwise, Virginia would have been in there.
And what about Duke? They won the ACC. They sure did. Indiana won the national title, and the sad thing about your Hurricanes, they just didn't win anything, Joe, except they won some playoff games, though, right?
Yeah, they didn't. They represented themselves well. Now I'm proud of them.
How about Michael Irvin? He was talking about the 6-year guys.
Boy, he's a character, isn't he?
Oh, he is.
He's got some energy still.
Well, he'll make an asinine statement now and again, but normally I'll say this about him. Normally, I really like listening to him. I like most of the stuff he says, but man, when it comes to the Hurricanes, he'll throw anything out there, won't he?
Yeah, he's a character. Yep.
He is.
But they were they got all the old guys were representing, boy, Eder and James and Ed Reed and all that. So it was.
They had some sideline passes, didn't they?
Exactly. So,
hey,
all right, Joe, Scott.
New York Joe, thanks for joining us. Let's just one more time review real quick, and we'll let you go. You got the Patriots
and the Rams.
And the Rams. You got Joe's picking the Patriots and Rams. We're going to go with that.
Yeah.
I think Seattle's the best team of the 4, but that doesn't mean they're going to win the game tonight against the Rams.
Exactly. So I appreciate you letting me spend a little time with you, Scott. Enjoy the games today, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Joe, I think we're going to talk to Joe most weekends now, probably either Saturday morning or Sunday morning. And Joe, you have a great day. Thank you for joining us. Hey, you can
All
light
right,
that. You can light that stogie up again, Joe. You take care.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks for joining us on the Teal Shirt Report podcast, episode show number 12. New York Joe joining us. You guys have a great day. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.